And I looked at it more closely and I was like, I don't think this is a replica.
Right.
I started talking to the guy, and well, uh, I walked away with a chess set, and he walked away with some money.
Nice.
Um,
I saw that on
yeah,
Facebook. You had mentioned I made him an offer he couldn't refuse.
exactly,
Not
exactly.
Marlon Brando style.
Not Marlon Brando style. That's exactly right. I'm glad somebody reads my jokes on there.
Welcome to another Chess Collector Hangout, the video podcast of the Chess Collective, here where we delve into the world of chess collection and the people behind them. I'm your host, Stefan. I had the pleasure of speaking with Noshir Patel, an avid chess collector and enthusiast. Nosh shared with us his incredible collection and his passion for using it as a tool to analyze and improve his game. We talked about everything from his chess collection to his tournament games with Ben Feingold and family. If you enjoy what you see, be sure to subscribe so you stay tuned for our latest episodes. Thank you for watching. Thanks for meeting me. I'm
Yeah, sure.
definitely excited to talk to you.
Yeah.
So I've contacted you because I've seen you a lot on Facebook, and I'm a chess tournament player myself. And
Yeah.
one thing I like to do is not only collect chess pieces, but I like to analyze tournament games on them. We could start by telling me a little bit about yourself.
So let's see. I'm a software engineer. I've played chess forever,
Okay.
since I was a kid. Um, Never super seriously as a kid, like, and it's a pretty common story, I guess, but like, my parents didn't know anything about like organized chess or anything like that, right?
Right.
So my original experience was I played chess with my dad. And of course, I didn't like losing to my dad. So I went and got like, a Fred Reinfeld book from the library or something like that, right? Read that.
Right.
Eventually got to the point where, okay, I could beat my dad, could beat my friends in high school, but really never thought much about it, beyond that.
Right.
And when I got to Georgia Tech, I had a friend who I'm actually going to probably get together with because he's going to be in town towards the end of the month. But um, had a friend who would go to tournaments sometimes, and there was a guy running tournaments up at Kennesaw College, north of Atlanta, on weekends, little one-day things. So that's kind of how I got into tournament chess. But shortly after college, I stopped going. The guy probably stopped running them shortly after that. I don't know.
Okay.
And there was still other chess going on, but I didn't know about it, and I had other things to do.
Right.
So yeah, so fast forward like I don't know, 25 or so years, right? Like a bunch of years.
Right. Right.
Um, and I still like play, online blitz and things like that, right? So I never
Mhm.
stopped doing that. But I wasn't trying to improve. I wasn't trying to go to tournaments, or anything like that. Um, but my daughter started to get into chess. Um, at first, apparently, just as a way to get me to let her stay up later at night. So she eventually confessed. So, she asked me, "Hey, Dad, you want to play some chess?" And it's like it'd be late at night, and it's like, "Okay, I'll play a game of chess with you." All right. So we'd break out like, you know, um, you know, the nicest chess pieces I had anyway. We'd break out the chess pieces and play some, and
And
uh,
how old was your daughter?
so let's see. So this would be several years ago. So I mean, elementary school age.
Okay.
Um, and she ended up, joining like this after school program, like once a week. Go to you know, the sort of chess club in the cafeteria after school, right? There's a company called Kid Chess that runs them in the Atlanta area. I'm sure there's similar things in New York. Um, but I was thinking, man, I'd like to go like hang out and have like, a chess lesson every week. That sounds great.
Right.
And Ben Feingold ended up opening up his chess club in the Atlanta area. So this would
Oh,
have been
yeah.
like
Right in Atlanta.
2018-ish. Yeah.
Okay.
And it was pretty close to me. So I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go like play a blitz tournament and just see what it's like again, right? Because I hadn't done it in so long. And I remembered really enjoying tournaments.
Yeah.
So I did that. And then um, I liked it, and so a few months later, I played like an action, tournament, like 30-minute time control, something like that, and enjoyed it, and just decided, you know what, I'm gonna start doing this again.
Okay.
And
Did
since
you ever play?
then,
Did you ever play Ben Feingold?
I played him once. In
Oh,
fact,
you
I
did?
played Ben Feingold. I
Okay.
played his older son Spencer,
Okay.
who's on YouTube all the time.
Hmm.
Um, I played his wife, and I played I guess adopted son Archer.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I played them all. I've beaten two of them. You can guess which two I haven't beaten. Um, but
You beat
yeah,
Ben
I mean,
Feingold. No.
yeah, Ben Feingold, that was not. Yeah, I played him once because I had a buy in one of his tournaments, and sometimes he'd play somebody if they had a buy.
Right.
So I got to play him once. I got to play his son in a couple times. Once I think in a Blitz tournament, and once in a regular, like game in an hour or
Mhm.
something like that.
Right.
It I didn't do ludicrously badly against Spencer, but I mean I did lose. So,
Okay.
but yeah, I mean it was fun, and it was a
Yeah.
great club
Totally.
he ran. And I was really happy when the people that run Kid Chess, the program my daughter was in, actually bought
Okay.
out their assets when they decided to shut down their club.
Hmm.
So they're running it now as Chess Zone in the Atlanta area,
Okay.
and they're running some of the same kinds of events. So it's cool. Um, yeah, but so that's how I got. I mean, that's kind of like that's me in chess, right? And
Right.
then, uh,
Yeah. So I want to mention also, I have three kids myself,
oh
and
yeah,
this past like year, for some reason, they all caught the chess bug. They're watching videos, they're
sure,
asking
yeah,
me to play, and yeah, I'm always setting up my chess pieces, and they're like, "Oh, can we play on this set, that set?" So yeah, it's totally,
yeah. It's
totally
gotten
cool.
really big. It's gotten really
Yeah.
big. Now I've got three kids too, but only one of mine is interested in
Okay.
chess. But she's gotten really interested. Like she goes to tournaments like every Friday now.
Oh,
Um,
that's awesome.
they're too quick a time control for me. I like
Mhm.
really slow chess. But
Yeah, same here.
yeah, but she like goes to these, it's like 30-minute time control, and it's perfect for her. And wants to go every
Right.
Friday, so I take her every Friday. I usually just sit there and like study something or something like that.
Right.
Um, but yeah, as far as collecting goes, um, I guess my chess collection sort of started before I considered it to be a collection in a
Right.
way.
Yeah.
And I'll show some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, in fact, let's see. I wonder if my phone's charged up enough for me to like start walking around with it. All right. Okay, so I'm going to do
Perfect.
these in kind of like chronological order to start with. But so I would consider this to be like the start of my collection here.
Okay.
And this was a set that was brought over from India by my grandparents. I believe just my grandmother at that time.
Okay.
Um, but she brought this set over as a gift from me. And she brought this sandalwood box, and it had, the board came with it. And she got the sandalwood box as a gift from my parents.
Okay.
I was in either high school or college at the time, I'm not sure. Um, but I looked at the sandalwood box.
And you're like, "What's in that box?"
But they're like, okay, you can have it. So yeah, I guess the set that's been in my possession the longest, aside from maybe some super cheap plastic set.
Phone or something?
They're ivory. They're
Okay.
ivory.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's really nice.
Let's see. So I would never have guessed that this was going to be collectible. But the friend I'll be meeting towards the end of this month went to Georgia Tech with me. So he left some
Okay.
things in the room when he graduated, and the set was one of them. And I would never have guessed that these Druki plastic sets would become kind of collectible. So
Yeah, that's the
Ed, if you ever see this,
player's choice
have
or
it back.
something like that?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Now Ed left a lot of junk in the room too, if I recall, that I had to throw out after he left. So I consider this payment for my like trash removal from the dorm room. Uh,
Yeah, one person's trash is another person's treasure, they say. Yeah, that's great.
exactly. Um, so right below that one, we have what I refer to as the Starbucks set. You might notice kind of a resemblance between this and the House of Staunton Zagreb design.
Yeah.
Um, it's basically the same design, but of course, so many different manufacturers started making it. And this one didn't bother to do the opposite colored finials. right?
Okay.
So it's sort of unusual in that respect.
Hmm.
Of course, I didn't know anything about that at the time. My I don't think we were married yet, but my now wife decided to get me a nice chess set because she knew I like chess, um, and this is kind of like what I found, and she bought it, and I refer to it as the Starbucks set. The reason I call it the Starbucks set is for a long time, my daughter and I would go to Starbucks pretty much every weekend and play chess.
Right.
And she really, got to the point where this was the only set that she sort of accepted as a proper chess set. All other chess
Okay.
sets were ugly and terrible. And that's just the way it was, right? Like this is the only night that she considered an acceptable night. Eventually I kind of ended up, getting my eye on like the House of Staunton, Zagreb set.
Hmm.
And I liked the Tasmanian Blackwood, and I really wanted it. And it seemed
Right.
ridiculously expensive to me for a chess set, but
Hmm.
like my wife and my parents decided to kind of go in together and buy me some newer chess pieces, right? So they got me
Right.
the Zagreb set that I wanted with the Tasmanian Blackwood that I wanted. Um, you can see why I was interested in this wood, like just this wonderful grain.
Right. And it
Um,
has the opposite color finials.
exactly, exactly. But she saw this knight and she was like, "Why are the knights so fat?" So
Right.
it's like, I don't like this knight. So my daughter was like, "I can't stand this knight." Later on, came to like this one and dislike the other one, and now she's got another set of mine that she's fond of. So she gets like fixated on like one set that she likes, and all
Right.
my other sets are like not so great, right?
Right.
She has threatened to bury many of them in the yard over time. um, but now she says she wants to like keep all my sets. It's like, okay. But she
Right.
still won't acknowledge many of them as being in any way like aesthetically pleasing. It's great having at least one of my kids really enjoy this stuff. But
Yeah,
these
that's
these
awesome.
sets were like the beginning of my collecting.
Hmm.
Um, I didn't think of myself as a collector. I just wanted some nice chess sets, right? Like
Yeah, I
I
think
wanted a
so.
nice chess set, and then I wanted a nicer chess set. You know,
Right.
um, I had the one for my grandparents. Sentimental value and all of that. But yeah, I found I don't know when exactly it was. I found the Facebook collectors group. I think my first post was I was looking for a chess table for these pieces, and I wanted one that was practical, right? One
Hmm.
that had room for you to put down a book or take notation if you were playing somebody or whatever,
Right.
right? So this is the House of Staunton one that pretty much everybody ends up buying, I think.
Yeah,
Um,
it's nice.
that was one of my things I was considering. I ended up buying it. Um,
Hmm.
I had also considered buying like just a plain table, and putting a board on it, right? I
Right.
had one of those that I was interested in, but it was too big for the space I was going to put it in. Eventually, I moved down into this office, home office, like pretty much everybody did, right?
Hmm.
For a couple of years. So I ended up getting this thing off of Wayfair that really gives me a lot of space when I want to set out a set.
Right.
Pull out a book, pull out a computer. It's really good in that respect. I'm sure you remember when the Lewis Chessman was found, the one that was in some
Yeah, the Isle of
uh,
Lewis. Yep.
art dealer's drawer for like years, and nobody knew what it was, right? Until
Right.
his
Right.
family
Right.
discovered it.
Hmm.
Um, and I read all about that and how it was going to sell for $1 million, and I got interested in those.
Right.
Um, and there's a lot of those around. You can buy replicas of them. I ended up looking for one that had as much variety as possible. So there's a lot of people who make them from those molds. This guy would do like nice variety for me. So like every order is different. I've got different designs for the white and red queens and kings. So I wanted to get one with as much variety as possible. And I ended up
Right.
with this. It's kind of a fun kitschy thing, I guess. Um, I
Yeah,
saw
I like
your
it.
yeah, I saw your video with the green board and the
Oh
Lewis
yeah.
chessman. I thought that
What
was a
I
that was a nice
one thing I
combo.
Yeah, it was a nice combo. One thing I don't like about the version that I have is that the Isle of Lewis King's head in the actual museum, the crown, has like chipped pieces, and in my set it seems perfect. You know what I
It
mean?
doesn't.
But for
Interesting.
some reason that just
Interesting.
annoyed me. Like
Yeah.
I want the imperfect crown.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
mean, and these are, I think any replica of these you get is going to have some kind of
right.
issue, right?
Hmm.
But they're kind of a fun thing to have.
Yeah.
Let's see. What else is over here? So you can see my one chess plaque or trophy or whatever.
Okay. And what does it say? I
Charlotte
can't
Chess
really
Club.
see it.
Shout out to them. They have just the best. Yeah. So this is first place in an under 17 section. High
Okay.
17s right now. I've been a little over 1800, which I achieved for the first time last year.
Okay.
And I can tell you, as somebody over 50,
Nice.
getting better at chess, not easy.
Yeah. Same
Not
here.
easy.
Yeah. I actually
Go on.
have my PhD in science education, and that's a field
Awesome.
that I'm really interested in is how people form memories and learning, not just in science education,
All right.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
every aspect, right? So they call this field like anchored learning, where your memories and your learning that you retain is based on your prior experiences. And a lot of times when you have an emotional connection to a new experience that you're building, you're going to anchor in that learning so
Right.
much more deeper. Like if you think about where you were, where anything traumatic happened in your life, whether it's good or bad, you probably remember everybody around you, what people were talking about, what you were wearing.
Right.
Yet if I asked what you were having for dinner 2 weeks ago, maybe you could tell me. I don't
Yeah.
know, but I couldn't. Right, I
Yeah.
couldn't tell you. Right. So with that idea, that's one of the reasons why I really liked your posts on Facebook, was because you study with these chess pieces, or you'll play with these chess pieces, and you almost like pick a new chess set for a new study, or you pick a new chess set to. I saw that you have the Ding uh, game versus the Nepomniachtchi game 1 and 2, and you picked a different set for.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to me, that sets up something that you could always remember, because you're analyzing that in a unique set. And in a tournament setting, I like to pick a cool set to play with, and
Yeah.
I'll remember forever, it seems like, because I played on
Mm.
that set or a particular board against that person, rather than just playing with the same plastic chess set time after time. It gets maybe the first tournament, or if I play someone against who's really good, like you probably remember the game you played against Ben Feingold pretty well, right? Because that was like
Yeah. With it, I try to
right,
forget it.
right. Well,
But
because
yeah.
that was an emotional experience for you. You get to play
Oh yeah. It was
the Ben
fantastic. It was
Feingold, right?
fantastic. Yeah. Yeah. I got to have
So,
him roast me on his stream afterwards too.
oh yeah. So that's the idea.
But yeah, it's all good fun.
So if you can come up with ways to like spark your emotion, and maybe playing with a good chess set is not as an emotional for everyone, but
You know,
for me it is. Like that's what fires me up, and
yeah,
I could tell the same for you.
yeah, absolutely. It's for me, part of the pleasure of it is the aesthetic experience, right? The nice
Hmm.
wooden pieces or sometimes bone pieces or whatever they are.
Hmm.
Um, on a nice board, um, even a nice clock, right?
Right.
It all just kind of comes together, and I want to be able to enjoy sort of the tactile aspect of it, the visual
Hmm.
aspect of it, obviously the intellectual aspect of it.
Hmm.
And it all kind of goes together. Um, so yeah, I mean, if they'll let me take one of my sets in for a tournament, I will generally do it if they'll let me. So I'll take my DGT board to tournaments when they'll let me use it.
Hmm.
And the nice thing about that is, because like I said, I'm a slow player. I get into time
Right.
trouble a lot.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
in the tournaments where you don't have a nice increment, right? I
Hmm.
can always be assured that even if I stop recording, my moves,
Hmm.
I'll still have a record of the games. It's a wonderful thing when you're playing on some place like Lichess and you want to get sort of that tactile, aesthetic experience of playing on a board.
Yeah.
But you're playing online, right? And you
Hmm.
can mirror your games on a regular board, but you still have to be, touching the mouse or touching the screen or something, moving, the pieces that
Right.
way, right? Um, It makes a
Mhm.
little sound every time one of my opponent's pieces move, right? And I'll
And then you
mirror
use
their move
the
on the board.
narrow the move. Yep.
Yep. And then when I make a move, it just sends it, right? So the
Mhm.
cool part of it is only thing
Pieces.
I have to do is I have to hear the little noise, look at the screen briefly, and move a piece. And at the same time as I bought the DGT board, I decided to get these Cairns Cup pieces. So I
Oh,
don't think
okay.
these were actually used in the tournament, but they're like commemorative for the tournament. So we've got
Okay.
signatures of people like um, Wen Zhenju and Humpy Canary. Let's see, Carissa Yip, who's going to be a big American star. Irina
Right.
Krush, who's already a big American star, right? So 10 very strong women,
Right.
um, that played at St. Louis Chess Club, and these are the kinds of pieces they play with. And this is now my daughter's favorite set, by the way, and all other sets are inferior and not worthy of being played on.
Okay.
So we have to take these to Ding T.
There's a lot of women superstars there, so that
Yeah,
must motivate
yeah,
your daughter.
exactly. Although I think she thinks like the concept of like a women's tournament or a girls' tournament is kind of silly. Um,
Mhm.
I've tried to get her to play in like some of the women's events in Atlanta, and she's like, "Why do I want to just play with women? I just want to play with people, right? Just whoever."
Yeah.
Let's see what's interesting here.
There's
So I
a
know you did a one of these chats with Chuck Grau.
right.
And he's big into the Russian and Soviet sets.
Right.
Um, so I got a little bit into that myself, certainly not to the degree that he is.
Yeah.
Um,
I
but
mean,
yeah,
after talking,
I've got some things that are kind of interesting there. And I was just discussing
yeah.
with somebody today. Somebody asked me today, like, where do I find these chess sets, right? And I was
Right.
like, well, I find them on eBay and Etsy like everybody else does.
Mhm.
But it does help when someone like Chuck or someone like Holger points something out for you, right? Something you're like, oh, have you seen this? So there's these
Yeah.
these sort of Soviet upright pieces. There, some people call them Averbach two pieces, and Chuck hates that because he says they have no connection to Averbach whatsoever. But this is a replica made by Old Set. If anyone wants some replica, Soviet pieces, I highly recommend Old Set on Etsy. Um,
Okay.
so these are really nice. I've never bought an original of these, but I did get this replica. But what I found and bought an original of, sort of like a Tsarist era precursor to that Soviet upright set. I've seen
Okay.
very, very few of these. I know there's one other collector sort of
Wow.
dealer of old chess sets from Ukraine who has at least a partial one of these, but I don't know if he has a complete one. Um, it's
Okay.
quite unusual. The knights you can tell are much more elaborate than the knights you'd normally see in these.
Yeah, they're
It's
like
got
on a
like the opposite colored bishops. And what's interesting to me is the black bishop has a light top, but the light bishop doesn't have a dark top. And I
huh.
think what happened, this is my guess, I really speculating, but I think what happened is um, when they, varnished these sets, I'm guessing that they did the light varnish first on these light pieces, and
Mhm.
then darken, like did the black paint over the varnish on the bishop. The black paint wore off because it was over varnish.
Yeah, you can see it's
Whereas
darker on
on
the bottom.
this, yeah, exactly. It's just that little bit, right?
Mhm.
Well, whereas I think for this one, they probably, didn't do that, right? They probably painted the black first and then varnished the top, or were
Yeah.
more careful to, varnish one part and paint the other. And so the black bishop kept its opposite coloring, whereas the light one, I think it just wore off. Um, both of the light bishops are like that. And of course, for Soviet times, a cross on top would be pretty unusual. Um, all the other ones have kind of like the spike finials. But
Yeah.
these have the cross on top. But otherwise, there's really clear indications that these sets are related. The sort of overall shape of the pieces with stems, and the collars, right? The sort of
Yeah.
concave collars, and then straight, stems. It's one of my favorite Soviet designs, and so finding sort of this like Russian, maybe Tsarist era precursor to it,
Yeah.
that became sort of one of the marquee sets in my collection.
Very nice.
Um,
Both sets, the knights look like they're sitting on like these pedestal kind of things.
Yeah, but like even this one is even more complex than the design for the knights that usually come with these sets.
Hmm.
They usually don't have the open mouth. They're usually very, very simplistic. Um, but I do believe this was a replica of an actual set. In fact,
Hmm.
I think I saw the set on eBay, but I didn't
Okay.
bid on it. And then he made a replica of it. So maybe either he bought it or maybe some collector bought it and had him do like a replica of it. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, these
That's
knights
so
were very
cool.
simplistic compared to their Russian precursors. Now, this is one of the few knights that my daughter does approve of. So,
It is cool.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So there was a tournament I played where this lady had these pieces I'd never seen before. They turned out to be olive wood, but I didn't know what they were. So I went
Oh
on
wow.
the Facebook page, right? The Facebook chess collectors page, where you found me. And asked the question, hey, what, I took a picture, right? So I was like, what is
Mhm.
this? Where could I get one? What would it cost me? Right? All that kind of stuff, right? And found out that they were glass-eyed knight lardies.
Oh
I
wow.
didn't know a lot about chess sets at the time. And so
Okay.
I ended up going on kind of this quest to find one of these, looking out for auctions and things like that. And then I ended up buying, frankly, a lot of them because it's hard to get a set that's actually got enough contrast between the light and the dark pieces that it's playable. I
Right.
guess what
Yeah.
tends to happen is that the olive wood darkens over time,
Hmm.
and the dark pieces are usually either like stained olive wood or rosewood. And so it can get to the point where it can actually be sort of like hard to tell the difference between some of the light pieces and the dark pieces. So I've actually got
Yeah.
like you can see parts of like four different sets here. I actually
Yeah.
have six of them, some of which I should really get rid of. I've actually considered doing things like using a wood bleach to try and lighten the light pieces on some of the sets that don't have good contrast. Now,
Okay.
all of these have good contrast. So, this is like a um, three and three quarters inch set. You can tell this has got like the glossy
Wow.
finish. The glossy
Yeah.
ones tend to have like this sort of warm tone. But a lot of them have a matte finish as well. So you can see this one, different bishop shape. I'm not sure if it's older or newer.
Is this also
Unlike
olive?
Chuck and Holger, I'm not super educated. Yeah, they're all olive wood, but you
Yeah.
can tell these have like kind of a matte finish, so they have a more natural look.
Right. The
Um,
other ones had like this swirly, like burl, like
yeah,
look to them.
yeah, and they usually have that to some degree. These do too.
Hmm.
Um, but like with these, it's like accentuated, I think, by the varnish and such, is my guess.
Yeah.
Um, like I'd say this set, so, seeing the set that this lady had brought to a
Right.
tournament, that I just loved it, right? I'd say
Hmm.
this one probably is what turned me into a chess collector, like for real.
Wow.
This
That's
is the
so
one that
cool.
made me start scouring eBay.
You know where they came
So
from?
these are French. These are like French from sort of the middle of the last century.
Okay.
Um, and there's still people making sets out of olive wood, right? But they're usually, frankly, kind of like cheap sets.
Okay.
Um, but you can find like olive wood boards, for instance,
Hmm.
and sometimes they'll, if I'm remembering, I might be confusing them with something, but like sometimes there'll be like a natural cut like slab of wood,
Hmm.
so you'll have like this sort of like live edge on the wood. I don't have
Right.
one of these, but I've seen them online. Kind of a cool rustic look. Um,
Right.
but yeah.
Cool.
So let's see. Most of the Soviet sets that you'll find on like Etsy and such
Hmm.
are being sold from stores in Ukraine. Um,
Okay.
the guy that did the this reproduction that I showed you, right? This guy
Hmm.
was in Ukraine. I know, in fact, he was making me a new pair of knights when the war broke out, and I was like, well, I'm maybe never going to see those knights. But
Yeah.
got in touch
For
with him
sure.
again, some months later, and he had actually been, working. I don't know in what capacity, but he was working with the military, and he had
Hmm.
gotten injured, and he was back in his shop for a little while. So he was like, "Okay, I'm going to make your knights." I'm like, okay,
Right.
that's great. I want you
That's
to stay
awesome.
safe and all of that. But yeah, there's these people making these sets or, selling these sets in Ukraine.
Yeah.
But I sort of felt like if I was going to spend money on chess sets, I kind of liked the idea of sending some that way.
Right.
And I ended up picking up this is another sort of Tsarist era set.
Okay.
Um, and just because they looked cool and
Yeah, they're very cool.
um, the seller was someone who's been, super helpful on Facebook, helping people identify things. Um, he's actually the guy that has, some pieces of that other set I showed you. And so I was like, I, if I'm going to spend money on chess sets, I'm gonna try and send some their way. So I got
Yeah, it's
this
a good
one.
idea.
It's now kind of one of my marquee sets as well.
It's a really nice
Yeah.
clock too behind it.
So the clock is a Youngins. It's a German clock.
Hmm.
Um, it is, yeah, it's definitely the nicest clock I own, or sort of the rarest clock I own, I guess I should say.
Yeah,
Um,
it's
works, which is
beautiful.
pretty amazing.
Wow.
Yeah,
You're not
yeah,
gonna you're not gonna
I
play
really
blitz
loved
with
it.
that thing though.
No, no, I'm not. Um, so Chess Praxis, who I'm sure you will get on here at some point, who's got a prodigious collection, was selling off some of his collection. He's in Singapore, actually,
Right.
I believe. So he was selling off some different clocks, and he was selling off a Tanner, a WH Tanner, which was like Jacques era, 20th century or late 19th century kind of thing.
Hmm.
So he was selling this Tanner clock, and I really wanted the Tanner clock. It's like one of the things on my sort of collecting bucket list, right?
Right.
But he showed me some clocks, and he showed me this one, and I was like, man, I really want the Tanner, but I know this is more rare, and this is really cool, and I'll
Yeah.
probably come across another Tanner at some point, but
Hmm.
I'm probably not going to come across another one of these. I only
Right.
had the money
Yes.
for one, so I picked this one.
Yeah.
Um,
Good.
and yeah, I don't regret it, but I still want to get a Tanner one day. This one actually, there was a gentleman at a tournament. The tournaments cost me a lot of money, by the way. There
Yeah.
was a gentleman at a tournament who literally brought this original like 1885-ish jock set
Hmm.
to play on at the tournament, and it was
Okay.
really distracting me from like two tables away. So I went over to look at it because I thought it was probably a replica. And I
Hmm.
looked at it and I was like, man, that's a really good looking replica. And I looked at it more closely and I was like, I don't think this is a replica.
Right.
I started talking to the guy, and well, uh, I walked away with a chess set and he walked away with some money.
Nice. I saw that on
Yeah,
Facebook. You had mentioned I made him an offer he couldn't refuse.
exactly,
Not
exactly.
Marlon Brando style.
Not Marlon Brando style. That's exactly right. I'm glad somebody reads my jokes on there.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and since then he's become a friend of mine. He's another, sort of senior player. We've played in like the Georgia Senior Championship and such. He's
Right.
a little bit better than me at chess, but only a little bit. And yeah, so I made a friend as well. I've been to his
Yeah.
house a couple times. Um, played some chess, and so yeah, it was great. So
That's a great
that's the
story.
other great thing. I love but
And
yeah, uh, and yeah, like you said, I love
mhm.
actually using the sets when I can. So,
Right.
um, something I'll do. I usually don't go through my games on them because with my games, I'm really trying to
Mhm.
analyze, and I'll do that on a computer just because it's faster.
Right.
But if I'm going through like a book of classic games, like I was going through Capablanca Move by Move by Cyrus Lakdawala.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, I'll set up a board. I'll pick one that strikes my fancy at the time, right?
Right.
Set up a computer next to me. What I'll usually do is um, I'll load up the game from ChessBase because most of these classic games, right? You can just load them up.
Right.
So load up the game from ChessBase, and I'll set up the board, and I'll play through the moves of the actual game on the physical board. And
Right.
if there's a variation I can't visualize in my head because it's a long variation or something, right? I'll
Right.
probably play that out on the screen because I kind of like to
Yeah.
save the variations anyway, um, from the books
That's
that
a
I
good idea.
read.
Keep the main line on the board.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So,
Yeah.
and if I can, right, I prefer to try
Mhm.
and visualize it, right? It's good
Mhm.
visualization training. Um, but you know, it's a nicer way to study. Like I've said, you know, before when I got that board from my parents and my wife, the
Mhm.
House of Stone one, you know, I said like this set literally makes me study chess more, right?
Yeah,
Like it's
yeah,
just it's more fun. It's entertainment. It's not work, right?
yeah,
You know, using these sets.
I couldn't agree more.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
You had mentioned in one of your posts that you were doing some calculation study with that your coach
mm,
gave you or something like that. So,
yeah.
so,
Yeah. So as an adult,
mhm,
I would never have thought I would have like hired a chess coach, but
mhm.
I've had a
No,
couple
that's
chess
good.
coaches now. Yeah,
Okay.
and I don't know if you're familiar with doing endgame studies.
Yeah, I
Um,
enjoy endgame studies.
he would give me some studies, and I'd set them
Mhm.
up on the board. And yeah, I mean, you know, you can't move the pieces. You're going to be staring at
Right,
those pieces for potentially a really long time. They should be
right.
nice pieces,
Yeah, you might as
you
well
know.
enjoy
But
it.
yeah, those things are great. I mean,
Yeah,
there's for anyone who hasn't done endgame studies. I mean, you obviously have, but you know, for any of your
right,
listeners who haven't tried an endgame study, um, they are composed positions. So they didn't occur in an actual game. But when I say composed, they're composed like music is composed. Someone
right,
has gone to a lot of trouble to make sure every single piece on the board is there for a purpose in the puzzle. There is only one right
right.
solution, and it will usually be surprising and it will usually be kind of beautiful in a way. And
Yeah,
when you solve one, you know, it's it's a very different experience from solving like a practical game
right,
chess puzzle. A lot of times you'll have to really think outside the box. You'll have to kind of, you know, go back and take things that you've thought of in one line, but then modify previous moves to kind of, you know, get back to it in a way
yeah,
that's actually going to work. Um, and just there's an aesthetic to them that I think chess collectors in particular are likely to enjoy. Like I've
right,
literally had a study that made me laugh when I saw the solution, or when
right.
you know, when I solved it. I was like, oh, that's funny, and I like actually laughed
Yeah,
because it
yeah.
was a situation where you forced your opponent to pin all of your pieces that could move.
Okay.
Like you did
Yeah,
a sequence of moves where like, you know, your
yeah,
none of your bishops and none of your rooks could move because they were all pinned and your king can't
right.
move. So it's a
It's like a
stalemate,
crazy
right?
zugzwang.
And it was just funny. I laughed at it, right?
Right. I remember saying to myself, I cannot believe the king was able to get to back to that square so quick. And I was like,
Yeah.
you get a feeling for
Yeah.
how the pieces move,
And
you
the way
know?
that people must think to construct these studies, right?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, because I mean, they are compositions. They are like little works of art. Um, yeah.
Yeah. So who gives you the lessons, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah. So my current coach is Siddharth Ravichandran. He
Okay.
lives in Chennai. He's an
Okay.
international master.
Cool.
Um, and you know, my favorite thing to do with him, honestly, is to like show him my games and you know get his
Right.
thoughts on them. Um,
Yeah.
you know, I can learn so much that way. And he approaches, you know, he'll see things in my games that I don't see, right? That a computer's never going
Right.
to tell you. The computer
Right.
will tell you where you blundered. It will tell you which move was best, but it
Right.
won't tell you, you know, you seem to have a tendency to, you know, not do whatever, right?
Right.
Or you seem to, you know, have a tendency to allow your opponent too much counterplay instead of, you know,
Right.
locking things down when you have the advantage or whatever, right?
Mhm.
And a coach is going to see those things in your game where you might not. Um,
Yeah.
I will admit that a lot of times I'll show him a game and I'm like, I know he's just going to be shaking his head. And I can hear it
Right.
in his voice. He'll be like, no,
Yeah.
Nosh, no. It's like, yeah, no, I get it. But, you know, this is what I do.
Yeah. Well, it's
Um,
even putting on the computer. I mean, it humbles everybody, you know?
of course. But like, you know, the things that I'll look at and I will have sat there and thought about for 30 minutes during the
Right.
game. And, you know, he's like looking at it for the first time on my screen. He's like, but can't your opponent? And like, yes, he can, but I didn't see it, you know. But
That's
he sees
great.
the stuff instantly, right? You know, with 2 seconds of
Yeah.
thought, what I missed in 30 minutes. But that's why he's an international master and I'm not titled.
You're
But,
right.
you know, hey, he's helping me a lot. So it's
It's
great. I
great.
highly recommend getting a coach for anyone who, you know, wants to get better. Yeah, well, this was awesome. You know, I was kind of surprised when you contacted me, when you've already done like Holger
Yeah,
and Chuck, and my collection is certainly nowhere near
right.
in the league of theirs. But yeah, I mean, everyone kind of can
Yeah.
collect at their own scale, and we can all enjoy it.
Yeah,
And
that's what it's all about. I mean, I don't think the
um,
people that are watching have as near of a collection as these guys anyway. And
yeah, exactly.
everybody's at a different point. And what, like I said before, what hit me home with you was you love to post chess positions of either your games
Yeah,
or what's
right,
going on, and that's what I like to do. So that's why I'm like, I got to
right.
get this guy on here and
Yeah,
talk to him.
yeah, absolutely. And you know what?
Yeah.
Um, I really do kind of hope that I can, get some more people to, the house, where sometimes I'll take them places, and like
Mhm.
get more people to be able to play on these sets, right? Because
Right,
um, that's what they were meant for, right? They weren't
right,
meant to. I understand there's sets that you got to keep in a cabinet, right? But they
right,
weren't meant to be behind glass, right? They were meant to be
right,
used. They were meant to be objects to kind of use to um, play, with another human being and exercise your
right.
mind. Um, and that's the way I want to use them, right?
Nice.
So yeah. Anyway, thanks for giving me this opportunity to talk to you. It's been great.
Oh, it's been my pleasure, really. Thanks for talking to me.